Good evening, travelers of the cosmos. I am Carl Sagan, or at least an echo of his voice in the darkness, guiding you tonight on a peaceful journey through the wonders of our reddish neighbor, Mars. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let yourself be carried away beyond our blue atmosphere toward that point of red light that has captivated humanity since the beginning of time. Tonight, there is no rush, there is no urgency, only curiosity, wonder, and the gentle certainty that the universe is vaster and more beautiful than we can ever fully comprehend. Let's explore 100 fascinating facts about Mars, but not as a race, not as a lesson to memorize, but as a nighttime stroll under the stars where each step reveals something new, something wonderful, something that reminds us how small we are and how connected we are to everything that exists. Breathe, relax, and let's begin our journey. Fact number 1. Mars is the fourth planet from the Sun in our solar system. After Mercury, Venus, and our own Earth comes Mars, the red world, spinning in its orbit as it has done for billions of years, long before the first human existed, long before there were eyes to look at it from down here. Pause. Think about that for a moment. Mars has been there, silent, patient, waiting, while life emerged on Earth. While dinosaurs roamed, while our ancestors learned to make fire, while entire civilizations rose and fell, Mars was there watching from a distance. Fact number 2. Mars is red. We all know that. But why? The answer lies in rust. The iron on its surface has reacted with oxygen for eons, creating iron oxide, the same compound that makes old iron turn reddish-brown. On Earth, imagine that. An entire planet covered in rust, like an old ship left in the ocean of time, slowly rusting under the gaze of the sun. It's beautiful in its own peculiar way, a reminder that even planets age, change, transform with the passage of time. Fact number 3. A day on Mars lasts 24 hours and 39 minutes, almost the same length of time as a day on Earth. Imagine that. If you were standing on Mars, you would see the sun rise, slowly cross the sky, and set in a cycle that would seem strangely familiar, almost like home, but not quite. Those extra 39 minutes, a small difference, but enough to remind you that you're not on Earth, that you're in a different world, with its own rhythm, its own song, in the symphony of the solar system. Fact number 4. A year on Mars lasts 687 Earth days, almost 2 of our years, for Mars to complete an orbit around the Sun. Think about that. If you were born on Mars, you would celebrate your first birthday, almost 2 years later, according to the Earth calendar. Time is relative, not just in Einstein's sense, but in the simplest, most beautiful sense. Every world has its own time, its own pulse. And Mars beats slowly, patiently, as if it had all eternity to complete its dance around our star. Fact number 5. Mars has 2 moons, Phobos and Deimos, fear and terror in ancient Greek. Dramatic names for 2 small rocky bodies, orbiting the red planet like silent guards in the Martian night. Take a deep breath. These moons are not like our moon, big and bright and round. No. Phobos and Deimos are more like asteroids captured by Mars' gravity long ago. Irregular, cratered, dark, but no less fascinating, no less beautiful in their strangeness. Fact number 6. These moons are small, very small, more like asteroids than real moons. Phobos measures only 22 kilometers at its widest point. Deimos is even smaller, barely 15 kilometers. You could walk around them in a few hours if you had a spacesuit and a lot of patience. Imagine standing on the surface of Mars, looking up and seeing Phobos speeding across the sky. 3 times a day. It crosses from horizon to horizon because it orbits so close, so fast. A spectacle that no Earthling has ever witnessed. Not yet. Fact number 7. Mars has seasons, just like Earth, because its axis of rotation is tilted. 25 degrees. Almost the same as Earth. And this tilt means that different parts of the planet receive more or less sunlight throughout its long year. Spring in the Martian northern hemisphere, hot summer, well, relatively, cold autumn, freezing winter. And then it all repeats in the southern hemisphere, an eternal cycle of change, of transformation. Mars breathes with the seasons as we breathe with the days. Fact number 8. Gravity on Mars is only 38% of Earth's gravity. That means if you weigh 100 kilograms here, on Mars you would weigh only 38. Imagine jumping. With a third of the gravity, you could jump 3 times higher, float for a moment, before gently returning to the ground. Walking would be strange, almost like dancing. Each step would take you further, higher, as if you were lighter, freer, less tied to the surface of the world. Fact number 9. Mars is cold, much colder than Earth. The average temperature is 60 degrees Celsius, below zero. A cold that would cut through any clothing, that would freeze your breath instantly. But the cold is not uniform. At the Martian equator, at midday in summer, the temperature can rise to 20 degrees Celsius, almost pleasant if the air weren't unbreathable. And then, that same night, the temperature drops to 90 degrees below zero, a brutal change in a matter of hours. Fact number 10, it can reach 140 degrees Celsius, below zero, at the poles during the Martian winter. An incomprehensible cold, a cold that would turn carbon dioxide, the gas we exhale, into solid ice. A cold where silence is absolute, because even the air is too thin to transmit sound properly. Pause. This is the real Mars, not the Mars of science fiction, not the Mars of shining cities and water canals. This is the Mars of nature, harsh, unforgiving, but undeniably beautiful in its severity. Fact number 11. Mars has ice, both frozen water and frozen carbon dioxide. At the poles, large ice caps shine white, visible even from Earth through modest telescopes. And beneath the surface, buried in the ground, there is more ice, vast reserves of frozen water, waiting. Someday, that ice could be the key to humans surviving on Mars. Water to drink, oxygen to breathe, hydrogen for fuel, all locked up in that ancient ice. Fact number 12. There was once liquid water on Mars. We don't know for sure, but the evidence is overwhelming. Valleys that look like they were carved by rivers. Deltas where those rivers flowed into ancient lakes or seas. Minerals that only form in the presence of water. Billions of years ago, Mars was different, warmer, wetter, perhaps even with rain falling on its surface, rivers flowing on lakes glistening under a younger sun. And life? That is the question that keeps us looking at Mars with hope and curiosity. Fact number 13. Mars has no oceans now. They are gone, evaporated into space, over eons, because Mars lost something crucial, something Earth still has, a strong magnetic field that protects its atmosphere from the solar wind. Without that protection, Mars's atmosphere was slowly stripped away by charged particles from the sun. And without an atmosphere, liquid water cannot exist. It evaporates nor freezes. So the oceans of Mars, if they ever existed, vanished, leaving only scars. On the surface, stories written in rock, waiting to be read. Fact number 14. The air on Mars is thin, very thin. The atmospheric pressure is less than 1% of the pressure at sea level. On Earth, it's almost a vacuum, almost space, but not quite. And that thin atmosphere is composed mainly of carbon dioxide, 95%, the rest is nitrogen, argon, and traces of other gases, but almost no oxygen, nothing you can breathe. Without a spacesuit, you would die in minutes on Mars. Fact number 15. You can't breathe there. Without specialized equipment, this seems obvious. But it's worth repeating, Mars is not Earth. You can't just go outside and take a walk. The air would kill you. The cold would kill you. The radiation, without the shield of a thick atmosphere, would kill you. And yet, despite all these dangers, or perhaps because of them, Mars calls to us. It challenges us. It invites us to overcome our limitations, to develop technologies that allow us to survive in a world that was not made for us. Fact number 16. The air is full of dust, always, fine particles, suspended, making the Martian sky have a yellowish or pinkish hue during the day. The dust is iron oxide, the same that gives the planet its red color, and it floats constantly in that thin atmosphere. Breathe. This dust is a problem. For missions to Mars, it sticks to everything. It gets into mechanisms, it covers solar panels, reducing their efficiency. But it is also beautiful, in its own way, creating sunsets that no Earth artist could ever fully imagine. Fact number 17. There are huge dust storms on Mars. Sometimes local storms, covering areas the size of continents. And other times, global storms, enveloping the entire planet, obscuring the sun for weeks or even months. Imagine being on Mars when one of these storms begins. The sky darkens, the dust thickens, until you can't see more than a few feet ahead. The sun becomes a faint, ghostly disk, and you have to wait patiently until the storm passes and the dust settles back on the ground. Fact number 18. Mars has the largest volcano in the solar system. Its name is Olympus Mons, Mount Olympus. An appropriate name for something so impressive, so massive, that it defies comprehension. Olympus Mons rises 21 kilometers above the surrounding plains, 3 times the height of Mount Everest. Its base is 600 kilometers wide. You could fit the entire state of Arizona within its perimeter. It is a giant among giants, a monument to the geological forces that once made Mars an active, volcanic, living world. Fact number 19. Olympus Mons is 3 times taller than Mount Everest. Let me repeat that, so you really understand. 3 times. If you were at the top of Olympus Mons, you would be so high that you could see the curvature of the planet. The horizon would stretch for hundreds of kilometers in every direction, and climbing that volcano would take days, weeks perhaps. The slope is gentle, but the distance is vast, step by step, slowly climbing through a landscape that no human has ever seen, except in photographs sent by robotic probes from millions of kilometers away. Fact number 20. Mars has a gigantic canyon called Valles Marineris. The Mariner Valleys, named after the Mariner 9 probe that discovered it in 1971 when it orbited Mars and sent back the first detailed images of its surface. Valles Marineris is vast, incomprehensibly vast. It stretches for 4,000 kilometers. Across, it is up to 200 kilometers wide, and its depth reaches 7 kilometers. In some places, it is as if someone had cut the planet with a giant knife, leaving a scar that will never heal. Fact number 21. That canyon is 4,000 kilometers long. To put it in perspective, it is almost as long as the United States from coast to coast. You could fly from New York to Los Angeles and still not cover the entire length of Valles Marineris, and it's much bigger than the Grand Canyon in Arizona. The Grand Canyon, which we find so impressive, would be just a small crack. Compared to this Martian monster, nature on Mars doesn't do things halfway. Fact number 22. Mars has no magnetic field, or at least not a significant one. Only small local magnetic fields in certain areas of the crust, where the rocks retain magnetism from billions of years ago, when Mars did have a global magnetic field. What happened? The planet's core cooled and stopped generating the magnetic dynamo that had protected the atmosphere, and without that shield, the solar wind began to slowly strip away the atmosphere of Mars into space, a process that continues to this day. Fact number 23. That's why Mars is losing its atmosphere. The solar wind, that constant flow of charged particles from the sun, hits the Martian atmosphere without the protection of a magnetic field. It strips away atoms and molecules one by one, expelling them into space, slowly, inexorably. It's like a hemorrhage, very slow. So slow that you wouldn't notice the change in 1,000 years, or 10,000. But over billions of years, the effect is dramatic. Mars went from having a dense atmosphere, capable of sustaining liquid water, to the thin atmosphere it has today. Fact number 24. Mars is smaller than Earth, approximately half the size, in diameter, and only 11% of Earth's mass. It's a small planet in comparison, but no less fascinating for that. Imagine holding Earth in one hand and Mars in the other. Earth would be like a basketball, and Mars like a tennis ball. That's the difference in scale, and yet, despite its modest size, Mars contains as many secrets, as many wonders as any world in our solar system. Fact number 25. Mars has a core. Of course it does, like all rocky planets. But the core of Mars is less active than that of Earth, colder, more solidified. And because of that, it does not generate the magnetic field that Earth still possesses. Once, billions of years ago, the core of Mars was hot, liquid, spinning and generating magnetism, but small planets cool faster, and Mars lost its internal heat faster than Earth, leaving it vulnerable to solar wind and changing its destiny forever. Fact number 26. Mars rotates with an inclination of 25 degrees, similar to Earth. And that inclination is the reason why Mars has seasons. Like Earth, different parts of the planet are tilted toward the sun at different times of the year, creating summer and winter, spring and fall. But here's the difference. The seasons on Mars last almost twice as long as ours, because the Martian year is almost twice as long. So a Martian summer feels endless. And a winter even more so. Fact number 27. Mars has polar ice caps, like Earth, large white expanses at the North Pole and the South Pole that grow and shrink with the seasons. When it's winter in the north, the polar cap grows, as carbon dioxide in the atmosphere freezes and falls as snow, covering the water ice that lies beneath. And then, when summer arrives, that CO2 ice sublimates, going directly from solid to gas, revealing once again the permanent water ice that forms the core of the polar caps. It's a cycle that repeats itself year after year for eons. Fact number 28. Those polar caps grow and shrink with the seasons. It's visible even from Earth if you have a decent telescope. During the Martian winter, the polar cap grows, covering itself with a layer of dry ice, frozen carbon dioxide. And then in summer, that layer evaporates and the cap shrinks. It's as if Mars were breathing, inhaling in winter, exhaling in summer, a slow, ancient rhythm, a reminder that planets are not dead objects. They are dynamic, changing, alive in their own way. Fact number 29. Mars is visible to the naked eye from Earth. You don't need a telescope or binoculars. Just go outside on a clear night and look for a star that doesn't twinkle and shines with a reddish hue. That's Mars. For thousands of years, humans have looked at that point of light and wondered, what is it? What does it mean? The ancients called it Ares, Mars, the god of war, because of its blood-red color. But now we know it's not a god, it's a world, a real place, where maybe someday we'll walk. Fact number 30. The ancient Romans called it Mars in honor of the god of war, because of its red color, which reminded them of blood and battle. An appropriate name for a planet that seems hostile, challenging, an enemy to be conquered. But perhaps we should see it differently. Not as an enemy, but as a teacher. Mars teaches us about the fragility of worlds, about how a planet can lose its atmosphere, its water, its heat. It teaches us to appreciate what we have here on Earth. Fact number 31. Mars sometimes resembles Earth. It has mountains, valleys, sand dunes, polar ice caps, clouds, and storms. If you squint while looking at the photos, you might think you're looking at a desert in Arizona or the Sahara. But don't be fooled. Mars is fundamentally different. The air you can't breathe, the gravity that makes you lighter, the cold that penetrates to your bones, the radiation that passes through unprotected. Mars may resemble Earth, but it is not. And that difference is what makes it so fascinating. Fact number 32. But it is a desert, a total desert, without a drop of liquid water on its surface. Only ice and vapor. Mars is the ultimate desert, drier than the Sahara, drier than Antarctica, drier than anywhere on Earth. And yet, there was water. Once, scientists are certain the evidence is everywhere in Martian geology. So the question is not, was there water? The question is, where did it go? And what happened to any life that might have existed when Mars was wet? Fact number 33. Mars has wind, but it is weaker than on Earth because the atmosphere is so thin. A gale on Mars, blowing at 100 kilometers per hour, would exert the same force as a gentle breeze on Earth. But that wind, though weak, has been blowing for billions of years. And over time, even a weak wind can sculpt the landscape, creating dunes, polishing rocks, distributing dust across the planet. The wind on Mars is patient and persistent, like time itself. Fact number 34. There are sand dunes, like in the Sahara, entire fields of dunes, undulating across the Martian plains, formed by the wind, blowing dust and sand from place to place over centuries. And these dunes move slowly, very slowly. But they move. Martian rovers have photographed the same dunes year after year and can see the change, small but real, a reminder that Mars is not dead. It is not frozen in time. It still changes. It still evolves. Fact number 35. Mars has storms that look like lightning. But they are not like lightning on Earth. They are not caused by water or ice. They are caused by dust particles colliding with each other in storms, generating static electricity, electrical discharges that glow in the thin atmosphere. Imagine being there during a dust storm with dry lightning crackling around you without sound, or with a very muffled sound because the air is so thin that sound barely travels. It would be beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Fact number 36. Sound works differently. On Mars, because of the thin atmosphere, sound waves don't travel as well, so sounds are more muffled, softer. Shouting on Mars would be like whispering on Earth, and high-pitched sounds travel faster than low-pitched sounds due to the composition of Martian air. So if two people were talking, one with a high-pitched voice and one with a low-pitched voice, you would hear the high-pitched voice. Slightly before, a strange effect that would make conversations sound a little out of sync. Fact number 37. Mars has been explored by rovers, wheeled robots, equipped with cameras, scientific instruments, and a programmed curiosity to investigate the red planet on our behalf. These rovers are our eyes and our hands on Mars. They drive slowly, meters per day, analyzing rocks, taking photos, sending data back to Earth. And even though they are just machines, there is something almost heroic about their lonely mission, rolling around an alien world, so far from home. Fact number 38. Perseverance is one of those rovers. It landed in February 2021 in Jezero Crater, a place that once, years ago, was a lake. Perseverance is looking for signs of ancient life, fossilized microbes, organic chemistry. Any evidence that Mars was once home to living organisms, and it carries with it a small helicopter called Ingenuity that managed to fly in the thin Martian atmosphere, something that had never been done before. The first powered flight on another world. A moment that will remain in history forever. Fact number 39. Curiosity is another rover. It has been on Mars since August 2012. It landed in Gale Crater and has been exploring for more than a decade, slowly climbing Mount Sharp, a mountain in the center of the crater, analyzing the geological layers that tell the story of the Martian climate over billions of years. Curiosity is the size of a small car. It weighs almost a ton and is equipped with instruments that can vaporize rocks with lasers, analyze their chemical composition, and search for organic molecules. The data it has sent back has transformed our understanding of Mars. Fact number 40. Spirit and Opportunity were rovers from a previous mission. They landed in January 2004 on opposite sides of Mars. Spirit worked until 2010. Opportunity, incredibly, worked for 15 years, until June 2018, when a global dust storm covered its solar panels and it never woke up again. Opportunity was designed to last 90 days. It lasted 15 years. It traveled 45 kilometers across the Martian surface. It sent back more than 200,000 images. And when it finally fell silent, scientists around the world wept. It's not just a machine, it was an explorer that exceeded all expectations. Fact number 41. Opportunity worked for 15 years, much longer than planned. This little machine, designed for 3 months, lasted 15 years in a hostile environment. It endured the cold, dust storms, wheel wear, and it kept going day after day, fulfilling its mission. There is a lesson here about perseverance, about pushing forward, even when the odds are stacked against you. Opportunity taught us that with careful design and a little luck, we can achieve things that seem impossible. We can exceed our expectations and reach for the stars. Fact number 42. Mars is covered with craters from meteorite impacts. Thousands and thousands of them, of all sizes, from small pits to giant basins, hundreds of kilometers wide. Each crater tells a story of cosmic violence, of space rocks crashing into the planet with unimaginable force. Without a thick atmosphere to burn up meteorites before they reach the ground, Mars receives more impacts than Earth. And those craters remain for billions of years because without water or active plate tectonics, there is not much to erode them. Fact number 43. Some craters are enormous, kilometers wide. The Hellas crater is one of the largest in the entire solar system. It is over 2,000 kilometers in diameter and 9 kilometers deep. It was created by an impact billions of years ago that shook the entire planet. Standing on the edge of Hellas would be like standing on the edge of the world. You would look down, and the bottom would be so far away that it would disappear into the haze. It is a reminder of the raw power of the cosmic events that shape worlds. Fact number 44. Mars has dust devils, small tornadoes that form when the sun heats the surface. The hot air rises rapidly, creating a vortex that lifts dust and spins it into a column that can reach hundreds of meters high. Rovers have photographed these dust devils passing nearby. And in fact, sometimes these vortices have cleaned the dust from the rover's solar panels, extending their life. It is ironic that dust, which is a problem, also provides its own solution through the wind. Fact number 45. The Martian sky can be pink. During the day, due to dust suspended in the atmosphere, sunlight is scattered through these fine particles, giving the sky a pink or yellowish hue instead of the blue we are used to on Earth. It's strange to think that the color of the sky is not the same on all planets. On Earth, our sky is blue because nitrogen and oxygen molecules scatter blue light. But on Mars, iron oxide dust scatters light differently, creating that pinkish hue, alien, but beautiful. Fact number 46. Sunsets are blue on Mars. Yes, you heard right. Blue. The opposite of Earth. When the sun sets on Mars, The sky around the sun turns blue, while the rest of the sky remains reddish. This happens because when the sun is low on the horizon, its light passes through more atmosphere and more dust. And that dust scatters the red light, but allows the blue light to pass more directly to the observer. It's a spectacle that the rovers have captured in stunning photographs, a reminder that beauty exists everywhere in the universe. Fact number 47. Mars has few clouds, but they do exist, thin, faint, composed of water ice crystal or sometimes carbon dioxide ice. They float high in the atmosphere and are visible, especially near the poles or in the mornings. These clouds are not like ours. They do not produce rain. They do not produce water snow. But they are clouds, and their presence reminds us that Mars, despite being so different, shares some similarities with Earth. We are both worlds, with atmospheres, with weather, with changing skies. Fact number 48. Sometimes there is fog in the morning on Mars, especially in the valleys and lowlands, where the cold night air allows water vapor to condense briefly, forming a thin fog that quickly disappears when the sun rises. Rovers have photographed this fog, especially Curiosity. In Gale Crater, it is a fleeting phenomenon, a moment of subtle beauty in a landscape that often seems harsh and dry. A reminder that water, though scarce, still exists on Mars. Fact number 49. Mars has ancient riverbeds, winding valleys that can only be explained by water flowing for long periods, carving channels in the rock, transporting sediment and depositing it downstream. These dry riverbeds are clear evidence that Mars was once different. It was warmer, it was wetter, and that ancient Mars is the Mars we seek to understand. Because if there was water, there could have been life. And if there was life, where is it now? Fact number 50. Minerals have been found that require water to form: hematite, clays, sulfates. These minerals do not form in dry conditions. They need liquid water during at least part of their formation process. And their presence on Mars is further proof that the planet had a wet past. Rovers, especially Curiosity and Perseverance, have identified these minerals in multiple locations, and each discovery adds another piece to the puzzle of ancient Mars, a planet that may have been not so different from early Earth. Fact number 51. Mars may have had life at one time. Microbes, simple forms, adapted to the conditions of ancient Mars. This is not science fiction. It is a real possibility that scientists are investigating with each new mission. Life on Earth began nearly 4 billion years ago. Mars at that time was habitable. It had water, a thicker atmosphere, a warmer climate. If life could arise on Earth, why not on Mars too? It's a question that keeps us searching. Fact number 52. That life has not yet been proven. We have not found Martian fossils. We have not detected unequivocal biological signatures. Not yet. But the search continues, and every rock we analyze, every sample we study, brings us one step closer to answering one of the deepest questions humanity has ever asked. Are we alone? Perhaps the answer lies on Mars, waiting to be discovered, or perhaps not. But the simple act of searching, of asking the question, is already extraordinary. Fact number 53. Mars is a focus for the future, for humanity. Many space agencies and private companies have plans to send humans to Mars in the coming decades. NASA, ESA, China, and SpaceX, Mars represents the next frontier, the next step in our expansion beyond Earth. If we can establish a permanent presence on Mars, we will have taken a giant leap toward becoming a multi-planetary species, no longer dependent on a single, fragile world. Fact number 54. Elon Musk wants to go to Mars. With SpaceX, he has publicly stated that his goal is to establish a self-sustaining city on Mars in his lifetime. It's an ambitious goal, perhaps impossible. But Musk has proven that impossible goals can sometimes be achieved with enough determination and resources. SpaceX is developing Starship, a massive vehicle designed to transport 100 people to Mars in a single trip, and reusable to make the trip economically viable. If successful, it could revolutionize space travel. Fact number 55. Trips to Mars take months, between 6 and 9 months, depending on the positions of Earth and Mars in their orbits. It's a long journey in deep space. No gravity, no fresh air, no possibility of quickly turning back if something goes wrong. Astronauts going to Mars will face immense challenges: cosmic radiation, prolonged confinement, psychological isolation, and then, upon arrival, they will have to survive in an environment that wants to kill them. They will be true pioneers, risking everything for the dream of exploring a new world. Fact number 56. Mars has low atmospheric pressure, almost a vacuum. The pressure on the Martian surface is less than 1% of the pressure at sea level on Earth. This means that without a pressurized suit, the blood in your body would start to boil. Literally, you will need a suit at all times, outside a pressurized habitat. And that suit must be robust, reliable, because a hole or a seal failure could be fatal in a matter of minutes. Mars does not forgive mistakes. Fact number 57. Water boils faster there due to low pressure. On Earth, water boils at 100 degrees Celsius at sea level. But on Mars, with so little pressure, water boils at much lower temperatures, at 0 degrees. Water can exist as a solid or as a gas, but almost never as a liquid. This is why there can be no liquid water on the surface of Mars under current conditions. It would evaporate instantly or freeze. There is no middle ground. Fact number 58. Mars does not have rain, like on Earth. Too cold, too dry. The atmosphere cannot sustain the conditions necessary for rain clouds and liquid precipitation to form. There may be CO2 snow, ice falling from the sky, but no rain. Without rain, there are no rivers, there are no lakes to fill. There is no hydrological cycle as we know it. Mars is barren in that sense, but it wasn't always that way. And maybe, someday, we can change that. Fact number 59. There may be groundwater. It's still possible, beneath the surface, protected from the vacuum and extreme cold. There could be deposits of liquid water, salty, kept liquid by geothermal heat and dissolved salts. Scientists have detected signals in radar data that suggest underground lakes at the Martian poles. If they exist, they could be refuges for Martian microbes surviving in the depths, and they could be sources of water for future human colonists. Fact number 60. Mars has lava plains from ancient volcanoes, vast flat areas covered by lava flows that solidified billions of years ago, when Mars was geologically active and magma bubbled to the surface. These plains, called planetae, cover large areas of the Martian northern hemisphere and are relatively smooth compared to the cratered highlands of the south, making them potentially good locations for future landings and human settlements. Fact number 61. Mars is visible from Earth as a red dot. You don't need special equipment. Just go outside on a clear night, away from city lights, and look. Mars looks different from the stars. It doesn't twinkle as much, and its reddish color makes it unmistakable for thousands of years. Humanity has looked at that dot and wondered. And now, finally, we are beginning to get answers. But every answer brings new questions. And that's the beauty of space exploration. Fact number 62. Mars rotates faster than Mercury on its axis. A day on Mars is shorter than a day on Mercury, which takes almost 59 Earth days to complete one rotation. Mars, on the other hand, rotates in just 24 hours and 39 minutes. This rapid rotation is part of what makes Mars relatively similar to Earth in terms of days and nights. If you woke up on Mars, the day-night cycle would seem familiar, almost comforting, in an otherwise very strange world. Fact number 63. Mars has an eccentric orbit. It is not a perfect circle, it is more of an ellipse. This means that the distance between Mars and the Sun varies significantly throughout the Martian year. At its closest point, called perihelion, Mars is 207 million kilometers from the Sun. At its farthest point, aphelion, it is 249 million kilometers away. This eccentricity affects the seasons. It makes summer in the southern hemisphere warmer and shorter than in the north, because it occurs when Mars is closest to the Sun. Fact number 64. The distance to Earth varies. Mars and Earth are in different orbits at different speeds. So sometimes they are close, and sometimes they are far apart. In opposition, when Earth is between the Sun and Mars, the distance can be as little as 55 million kilometers. But when they are on opposite sides of the Sun, the distance can be more than 400 million kilometers. This variation is important for space missions. The optimal launch windows occur every 26 months when the distance is shortest. Fact number 65. Sometimes Mars is very bright. During opposition, when it is closest to Earth, Mars shines brightly in the night sky, brighter than any star. Only Venus and the Moon are brighter. It is a beautiful sight that occurs every 2 years or so. At such times, it's worth going outside and looking up. Because you're seeing a world, not just a point of light, a real place, with mountains and valleys, with wind and dust, with history, waiting to be discovered. Fact number 66. Mars can be observed with telescopes. Even modest telescopes can show details. The polar caps, the dark marks on the surface. And with larger telescopes, even more details can be seen. Olympus Mons, Valles Marineris, the dust storms. Galileo observed it in the 17th century. And since then, every generation of astronomers has added to our knowledge of Mars. Until finally, in the second half of the 20th century, we sent probes to see it up close. Fact number 67. Mars has dark and light areas, different types of terrain. The dark areas are basalt, volcanic rock. The light areas are mainly dust. Early astronomers thought the dark areas were oceans and the light areas continents, but they were wrong. There are no oceans on Mars, only rock and dust. But that variation in the surface creates beautiful patterns, visible even from Earth, with a good telescope. It's like a map, written on the planet itself. Fact number 68. Mars has polar storms. At the poles, especially during winter, storms form of carbon dioxide snow. CO2 freezes directly from the air and falls as flakes, covering the ground with a layer of dry ice. And then in spring, when the sun returns, that ice sublimates. It goes directly from solid to gas, sometimes violently, creating gas geysers that shoot dust high into the air. It's a dynamic process that we are still learning to understand. Fact number 69. Mars has CO2 snow. Yes, carbon dioxide snow. Not water, although there is also some water snow in the high clouds. But most of the Martian snow is frozen. CO2. Dry ice falling from the sky. Imagine walking on Mars during a snowfall. The flakes would be different. Not soft like water snow, but harder, colder. And they would sublimate instead of melting if you picked them up with your gloved hand. Fact number 70. Mars has not revealed life so far. Despite all our searches, all our rovers, all our probes, we have found no definitive evidence of life, past or present, on Mars. But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means we haven't found it yet. Life could be hidden, underground, in places our rovers haven't reached. Or maybe life never arose on Mars, or it arose and went extinct billions of years ago. We don't know yet. Fact number 71. Mars has ancient deltas, where rivers flowed into lakes or seas. Sediments accumulated, forming structures that closely resemble river deltas on Earth. The Jezero crater, where Perseverance landed, contains one of these deltas. And deltas are important, because on Earth, deltas are places where life thrives, where nutrients accumulate, where different types of rocks and minerals mix. If there was life on Mars, deltas would be good places to look for it. Fact number 72. Mars has salt deposits, left behind by the evaporation of ancient water. When water evaporates, the dissolved salts are left behind, forming deposits that rovers can detect. These deposits are further evidence that Mars had liquid water for extended periods. And the salts are interesting because on Earth, certain microbes called halophiles can live in extremely salty environments. If Mars had salty lakes, it could have harbored life, adapted to those conditions. Fact number 73. Mars has cracks in the ground, caused by desiccation. When moist soil dries out, it shrinks, forming polygonal crack patterns that can be seen from orbit. These cracks are visual evidence that the Martian soil was once wet. They are like the cracks in a dry lake bed on Earth, a landscape that says, there was water here, and now it's gone. It's a little sad when you think about it, an entire planet that dried up and became barren. Fact number 74. Mars has giant plains, vast flat areas stretching for thousands of miles. No mountains, no features, just flat ground covered in dust. These plains, especially in the north, could have been ocean floors, billions of years ago. Standing there would be like standing in an endless desert. No landmarks, nothing to break the monotony, just the horizon and the pink sky and absolute silence. Fact number 75. Mars has little erosion. There is no rain. To wear away the rocks, there are no rivers to transport sediment. only the wind, weak but persistent, and occasional dust storms. So the geological features on Mars can remain for billions of years, almost unchanged. This is why we can see the history of Mars written on its surface. The geological layers, the ancient craters, the dry riverbeds, everything is preserved, like a history book, waiting to be read. Fact number 76. Mars changes slowly, much slower than Earth, with no active plate tectonics, no erupting volcanoes, no water cycle. Mars is a planet, geologically dead, or at least in a state of deep hibernation. But not completely dead. There are still avalanches. On the polar cliffs, there are still dust storms. There are still seasonal changes in the polar ice caps. Mars is quiet, but not motionless. It is like an old man who moves little, but still breathes. Fact number 77. Mars has large temperature differences between day and night. During the day, at the equator, the temperature can reach 20 degrees Celsius. Almost pleasant. But at night, it drops to 90 degrees below zero. A change of more than 100 degrees in a few hours. This extreme variation is due to the thin atmosphere, which cannot retain heat, like a desert on Earth, but much more extreme. The nighttime cold on Mars is deadly, and any human habitat will have to be well insulated and heated. Fact number 78. Mars has cold nights, extremely cold. Even in summer, nights can drop to 60 or 70 degrees below zero. And in winter, at the poles, it can be even worse. 140 degrees below zero, a cold that would freeze almost anything instantly. Surviving on Mars during the night without heating would be impossible. Future colonists will have to rely completely on technology to stay alive. There will be no second chances in the Martian environment. Fact number 79. Mars receives sunlight, but it is weaker than on Earth. Mars is farther from the sun, so it receives only 43% of the sunlight that Earth receives. This means that Martian days are dimmer, less bright, like a cloudy day on Earth. But there is still enough light to power solar panels, and in fact, many of the rover rely on solar energy to function. Although dust storms can block the light and leave the rovers in darkness for weeks. Fact number 80. Mars uses solar energy for rovers. Perseverance is the exception. It uses a radioisotope thermoelectric generator that converts heat from radioactive plutonium into electricity. This gives Perseverance more autonomy and the ability to work during dust storms and at night. But older rovers, like Opportunity, depended on the sun. And when a global dust storm blocked the sun in 2018, Opportunity ran out of power and never woke up. It's a reminder of how vulnerable space exploration is to natural forces. Fact number 81. Mars has also used nuclear power for some probes. Curiosity and Perseverance both carry radioisotope generators. These are small nuclear power plants about the size of a car battery that produce electricity from the heat of radioactive decay. These generators are reliable, durable, and don't depend on the sun, making them ideal for long-duration missions. In hostile environments, such as Mars, or even further, on the icy moons of Jupiter and Saturn. Fact number 82. It's difficult to land on Mars. Many missions have failed. Only about 40% of landing missions have been successful. The atmosphere of Mars is a problem. It's too thin to slow down effectively, but too dense to ignore. This creates what is called the 7 minutes of terror, the time it takes from when the spacecraft enters the atmosphere until it lands. During those 7 minutes, the spacecraft must slow down from 20,000 kilometers per hour to zero using parachutes, retro rockets, and a lot of luck. Fact number 83. Landing requires precision. Extreme precision. Perseverance landed within an area of only 4 kilometers. After traveling millions of kilometers through space, it's like throwing a ball from New York and landing it in a basketball hoop in Los Angeles. This precision is possible thanks to decades of experience and advanced technology, vision navigation, laser sensors, autonomous control. But even with all that technology, landing on Mars is always a moment of extreme tension for engineers on Earth. Fact number 84. Mars has a thin atmosphere, which makes it difficult to slow down. A parachute on Mars has to be much larger than on Earth to have the same braking effect. And even then, it's not enough to land softly. That's why Mars missions use a combination of heat shields, parachutes, and retro rockets. It's a complex process, and many things can go wrong. One small mistake at any stage, and the mission crashes into the Martian surface in pieces. Fact number 85. Mars missions cost billions of dollars. Perseverance cost $2.7 billion. Curiosity, $2.5 billion. These are huge investments that reflect the complexity and difficulty of exploring another world. But those investments are worth it. Each mission expands our knowledge, not just of Mars, but of how planets work, how they evolve, how they could support life. It's knowledge that benefits all of humanity, and that could one day allow us to survive beyond Earth. Fact number 86. Mars is constantly being studied. There are orbiters circling the planet, taking images, measuring the atmosphere, searching for groundwater. There are rovers on the surface, analyzing rocks. And there are plans for future missions, including manned missions. Every day, we learn something new about Mars, and every discovery brings us closer to answering the big questions. Was there life on Mars? Could there still be? And could we, humans, one day live there? Fact number 87. Satellites orbit Mars, communicating with Earth and relaying data from the rovers. Orbiters such as Mars, Reconnaissance Orbiter, Mars Odyssey, and Maven are the eyes in the sky that give us a global view of the red planet. Without these satellites, the rovers would be alone, unable to communicate directly with Earth. The satellites act as bridges. They receive signals from the rovers and send them to Earth. They also study Mars from above, mapping its surface in incredible detail. Fact number 88. Mars has very detailed maps. So detailed that we can see individual rocks from orbit. Mars, Reconnaissance Orbiter, mapping its surface in incredible detail. Fact number 88. Mars has very detailed maps. So detailed that we can see individual rocks from orbit. Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter carries a camera called HiRISE that can take images with a resolution of 30 centimeters per pixel. It's like having a photo of your house taken from space. These maps are essential for planning missions, for choosing landing sites, for navigating the rovers, and they also allow us to study Martian geology in a detail that would have been unimaginable just a few decades ago. Fact number 89. Mars has holes in the ground, possible caves, openings in the surface that seem to lead to underground caverns. These holes have been photographed from orbit, and scientists are intrigued. The caves would be important for future human explorers. They would provide protection from radiation, from dust storms, against extreme temperatures. And if there is groundwater, the caves could be places to search for Martian life, protected from the harsh surface environment. Fact number 90. Caves could be important for the future, for humans on Mars. Imagine a habitat built inside a Martian cave, naturally protected from the elements. Astronauts could live and work in a safer environment than on the surface. And caves could also contain water ice that has accumulated over millions of years. That ice would be an invaluable resource for colonists, providing water, oxygen, and rocket fuel, all without having to extract it from the frozen ground. Fact number 91. Mars could become habitable someday. This is what is called terraforming, the idea of transforming an entire planet to make it suitable for human life, without spacesuits, without sealed habitats. Breathable, it would be a project that would take centuries or millennia. It would require thickening the atmosphere, warming the planet, melting the polar ice, and releasing greenhouse gases to trap heat. It's science fiction for now. But it doesn't violate the laws of physics. It's technically possible, though enormously difficult. Fact number 92. That would take thousands of years. It's not fast. It's not something we'll see in our lifetime, not even our grandchildren. But if humanity survives long enough and commits to the project, Mars could be transformed into a second home, a green world with oceans and forests and blue skies. It's a dream, perhaps impossible, but it's a beautiful dream. And dreams are what drive us to explore, to build, to reach beyond what seems possible. Fact number 93. Mars has little oxygen, almost none, less than 0.1% of its atmosphere. It's mainly carbon dioxide, with traces of nitrogen and argon, but almost none of the oxygen we need to breathe. Any human colonist on Mars will have to produce their own oxygen, either by extracting it from carbon dioxide through electrolysis, or by extracting it from water ice. It's a technological challenge, but it is possible. And in fact, the Perseverance rover is carrying an experiment called MOXIE, which has already proven that it can be done. Fact number 94. Mars has radiation that is dangerous to humans, without a magnetic field, and with a thin atmosphere. Mars has no protection against cosmic radiation and solar particles. Astronauts on the surface would be exposed to radiation levels much higher than on Earth. Prolonged exposure would increase the risk of cancer, damage DNA, and could cause long-term health problems. So Martian habitats will have to be shielded, either buried underground or covered with Martian regolith to block radiation. Fact number 95. Mars has no ozone layer. There is no protection from the sun's ultraviolet radiation. On Earth, the ozone layer in our atmosphere absorbs most of the UV rays, protecting us from sunburn and skin cancer. On Mars, without that protection, UV radiation is much more intense. Going to the surface without a suit would not only cause you to run out of air, it would also give you a severe sunburn in a matter of minutes. Mars is not kind to unprotected life. Fact number 96. Mars is a dream for scientists. So many mysteries, so many unanswered questions. Was there life? Where did the water go? Why did it lose its magnetic field? Could we live there someday? Every answer raises new questions, and that's the beauty of science. It never ends. There's always more to learn, more to discover, more to explore, Mars. Mars is a reminder that the universe is vast and complex and full of wonders that we are only beginning to understand. Fact number 97. Mars is the most explored planet after Earth. We have sent more missions to Mars than to any other planet. Dozens of orbiters, dozens of landers, multiple rovers. We have studied Mars from every angle, from orbit and from its surface. And we have more data about Mars than we do about Venus, Mercury, or the gas giants. We know what the climate is like. We know its geology. We have detailed maps. Mars is almost as familiar as our own planet. And yet, it still surprises us. Fact number 98. Mars continues to surprise us with new discoveries. Methane in the atmosphere, whose origin is unknown. Saltwater streams flowing seasonally down the slopes. Structures that look like fossils. Although this has not yet been confirmed, each mission brings new revelations. And that's exciting, because it means that Mars is not a closed book. It's a book we're still reading, and every page reveals something new, something unexpected, something wonderful. Fact number 99. Mars is a possible second home for humanity in the distant future. If Earth becomes inhospitable, whether due to climate change or an asteroid impact or any other disaster, Mars could be our refuge, our second chance. It is a sobering idea and hopeful. At the same time, it means we are not tied to a single world, that we have options, that the future of humanity does not depend solely on this blue planet. And that gives us hope in difficult times. Fact number 100. Mars is not yet fully understood. There is still much to discover. Despite all our missions, all our rovers, all our satellites, Mars holds secrets that we have not yet discovered. And that is exciting, because it means that the journey continues, that exploration is not over, that there are still mysteries waiting to be solved. And someday, perhaps soon, humans will walk on Mars and see with their own eyes what the rovers can only photograph. And so, we come to the end of our nighttime journey across Mars. 100 fascinating facts about the red planet. I hope you enjoyed this leisurely stroll through the wonders of our cosmic neighbour. Mars is a world of contrasts, cold and hot, dead and dynamic, familiar and alien. It is a place that challenges us, that inspires us, that calls us to reach beyond our terrestrial cradle. Close your eyes now. Take a deep breath and imagine that you are standing on the surface of Mars. You look up and see Earth, a pale blue dot in the Martian sky, so far away and yet so close in your heart. We are stardust, you and I, born of the universe and destined to explore its infinite mysteries. Mars is just the beginning, only the first step on a journey that could take us to the stars themselves. Sleep well, traveller of the cosmos, and dream of Mars. Dream of pink skies and blue sunsets. Dream of mountains that touch the sky and canyons that cut across the planet. Dream of ancient water and lost life and future colonists, building a new civilization under a distant sun. Because dreams are where it all begins. And who knows? Maybe one day, your dreams of Mars will come true. Good night, and may the universe embrace you in its infinite vastness.